my friends, and welcome back. It's Tuesday, and today, like yesterday, unfortunately, there are some negative news that I cannot avoid, but I will try to keep them as human as possible because nobody of us wants to feel depressed, especially me. But when I do this job, I have to bring you this news, and of course it touches upon Avdiivka. Russians have advanced. But before we go there, I want to bring you something human from Ukraine. In this video, we see a daughter whose father is fighting on the front lines, because most of Ukrainian soldiers are 30 plus years since the mobilization age was mostly 27. Now it's 25-year-olds, meaning that younger men will not be conscripted. So his father is on the front, probably not his son, and the daughter is right here, seeing her father only for a second, waving him. Look, that was the father. That's it. That's how long she saw the father. And look at the emotion. For a moment you saw your father. He's alive. He's not dead. And he's going and rotating to another front, and you see him on the train passing by for a second. Next time you don't know if he's alive or not. This is a very touching story from Ukraine. It's only 5 seconds long, but I want to share these stories because this humanizes this war. My friends, now the most nasty piece of news that I want to get over with as soon as possible to focus on more positive things later in the video. It's the Avdiivka situation, Avdiivka front. Russians are advancing quite fast, and they have advanced. The most difficult situation for the Ukrainian army continues to be northwest of Avdiivka, where the Russian army advanced 2 kilometers northwest from Otcheretyne and has reached near the village of Novaoleksandryvka. Now let's look at it on the map, and don't be alarmed. This map looks so fuzzy and colorful. It just has all the units in it. It all makes sense in a few seconds. This here is Avdiivka. You're used to seeing it, of course. If you go a little bit north from it, the purple area here is where Russians have advanced, and this is the Otcheretyne. Now, 2 kilometers northwest from Otcheretyne is this road right here. Novaoleksandryvka is here. Russians are at the outskirts of this settlement, or by the making of this video, they might have already been in the settlement, occupying it. Meaning they have pushed through Ukrainian defensive positions near the Avdiivka front. You see the front line, right? This is the defensive line. One of the most well-defended line, actually. And Ukrainians, unfortunately, might have to be forced to pull back, not only from these settlements here, but to the next defensive line. Because if Russians occupy Novaoleksandryvka, this puts all of the surrounding settlements in threat and in the firing sectors. Russians here are in Geramik, meaning that Ukrainians will have to pull out of Novaoleksandryvka right here. It changes the whole situation around Avdiivka, meaning that Ukrainians might have to execute strategic withdrawal to the next defensive lines, where again they can start destroying Russian assault groups one by one, like they did in Avdiivka. Situation is very dire right here. Nothing positive here. Ukrainian localized counterattacks have not been able to re-liberate these positions, and as of now, by the making of this video, Ukrainians are in retreat and Russians are advancing. The Russians are taking insanely heavy losses, but they don't care. The southwest of Avdiivka, the Russian army moved west of Pervomaisk and reached the eastern part of Netailove. You see, my friends, I'll zoom in. This is the settlement of Pervomaisk. It's surrounded by these water bodies, and this highway right here leads right to Netailove. This settlement right here, it's the outskirts, and possibly Russians will also occupy this settlement and force themselves through this highway even more west. The main goal here, of course, is Pokrovsk, this bigger city in the area, which is also one of the Ukrainian defense points, but it's still over 10 kilometers away. But if Russians reach this point, very troublesome. There is a lot of emotion on the Ukrainian social media regarding Otcheretyne. Now, I'm going back to this settlement right here. Otcheretyne, with some even seeking to assign blame. However, I have written several times, a lot of Ukrainian media painted a picture of Otcheretyne being a fortress, much like Avdiivka. The defenses were extremely strong there, and the Ukrainian populace was hoping that Otcheretyne is another steel wall, although it took Russians only about a week to occupy it. So not like the 6-month assault on Avdiivka at all. So Ukrainian people are really afraid right now. What is going to happen? Is this going to be the major breakthrough? The situation has worsened very rapidly for the Ukrainians in this sector specifically. And Russians, since they are grabbing onto anything they can get, now it's like, okay, the defensive lines are getting thinner, let's attack everywhere. So Russians are assaulting on every front line right now, hence the insane losses. Now, my friends, many of you have asked, what about ground-launched small diameter bombs, GLSDB? You know, the Saab and Boeing mixed venture to create these missiles or cruise missiles that have 16 kilograms of payload and which can maneuver mountains and roads and forests and everything. They're very maneuverable, very precise. Now I will bring you an update, and again, it's negative. So I have to apologize for having such negative news today, but I cannot ignore it. Many people have been asking for it for weeks actually. So here's the truth. There was much discussion about GLSDB ammunition, ground-launched small diameter bomb, which involves using a rocket motor from unguided M26 rockets fired from multiple rocket launchers, which then deploys wings, allowing it to fly up to 150 kilometers. So on paper, a very potent weapon. There are hundreds of thousands of such M26 rockets due to destruction of the United States military warehouses. So the potential, if this weapon were to work, they would have insane amount of these. So if it was an effective weapon, it could really change the battlefield, but it's not an effective weapon. Why? GLSDB was expected to be both highly accurate and capable of navigating in the air. Ukraine waited and waited for these, and then silence followed. What's up with that? Last year they were announced and everybody was really riled up about them. Media hyped them up, and then silence. Ukrainians did not comment on the situation, but information from the United States side revealed that these weapons proved ineffective in their intended form. According to the Defense Express, Russia was able to jam the satellite communication of the ground-launched small diameter bomb, reducing its accuracy from 1 to 2 meters, which is very accurate for 16 kilograms of explosives. The kaboom is big enough. If you miss with 2 meters, you will still destroy your target, making it very effective. But the Russians jamming made it with the accuracy of 30 to 50 meters, which is definitely not enough. If we're talking only about 16 kilograms of explosives, 30 to 50 meters is the accuracy of Russian glide bombs or Russian missiles, which have hundreds of kilograms of explosives. Then you can miss. You can afford to miss because you have so big of an explosive. But in the case of GLSDB, I have to say it in this video, unfortunately, the weapon right now is being jammed by the Russians so much that it's almost useless. So it needs some... The first prototypes did not work. They will have to redevelop them. Anti-jamming capabilities are a must for this weapon. If they do that, then it has a potential to become a very effective weapon, but not now, unfortunately. All right, my friends, we have gotten the most negative news out of the picture. And yesterday in the last video, I showed you how Felix the cat, yes, a cat, and his owner John Windisch bought an entire Baba Yaga drone. And I want to show it because in the Christmas fundraiser, you guys donated 182,000. And we bought the needle drones and Baba Yagas and trucks. But I had this special video made separately for Felix the cat. But a Ukrainian editor edited it, and it had copyrighted music in it. I'm so sorry, Felix the cat. Meow meow, because it was actually deleted from yesterday's video. So now I cannot show the video because it has copyrighted music. But I can show you that this Baba Yaga right here, this one, this beauty, is bought by an actual cat and his owner John Windisch, but more so Felix the cat. So this cat-bought drone is already wreaking havoc on the Russian positions and Russian tanks, and they're really afraid of the Baba Yaga, especially when it is sent to them by the cat. Thank you, Felix the cat and John Windisch, for making this drone right here on the right side possible. You really make a difference in this war. My friends, talking about this, I am going to Ukraine tomorrow to deliver the last fundraiser, which we bought trucks and Estonian drones. We gathered 120,000 through your help, and I will deliver all of it. Some of the drones are not ready yet, but they will be delivered, and as soon as they are, I will show you the videos. I will show you the videos of trucks and some drones that are ready already tomorrow in my Instagram. keep an eye, link is in the description below, so you will know everything I do in Ukraine. In this video, my friends, we'll talk a lot about Russian economy. Now, I'm not here to say that it will collapse very soon. I'm not here to say imminent doom on it. No, Russian economy is holding. Even I made that mistake that, they're going to collapse in the first months of war. No, they held because Putin opened his war chest and is pumping it up with his gold revenues, dollar revenues, gold resources, and dollars and euros they still have in their currency reserves. For some mystery, Russia is experiencing a major labor shortages, with unemployment level dropping to 2.7% and even lower in the recent terms, actually. They're closing soon to 0%, which would be positive to some countries. 0% unemployment, but if you start to experience labor shortages, then your economy will start taking a hit from it. According to a study by the Central Bank of Russia, as of the beginning of April, 70% surveyed companies experiencing labor shortages. Thousands of Tajiks are leaving the country, and the only region with a surplus of available labor is Dagestan. But people from there are reluctant to move to other parts of Russia, since Dagestan and Chechnya, they're one of the only regions with a Muslim majority in Russia. They don't really assimilate. They will stay there, and they have their own culture, their own language. So it's not big use of the Dagestani workers to all of Russia as a country. People from poorer rural areas are predominantly those who are conscripted. So there is a significant shortage of agricultural workers and drivers in Russia. Defense industry companies are operating at a full capacity, and there is a particular demand for additional workers in drone production. The thing is, when the last mobilization happened, partial mobilization then almost 1 million people left Russia. So for every man mobilized, about 2 men left Russia. 300,000 were mobilized, close to 1 million left, meaning that if Putin is thinking about another partial mobilization, and there is already labor shortages, meaning that he will, let's say, mobilize 500,000 men. Then 2 men for every mobilized will leave Russia, so 1 million will again leave, taking away 1 million working age men from the labor market, which is a huge hit for Russia, because it has an aging population and workers are really in value right now. So mobilization is not only the mobilization of men going to the front, but the men also who are fleeing abroad thanks to it. So if Putin decides to do it, yes, it will bolster the front lines and is very dangerous to Ukraine, but it also hurts Russia really bad. It has a very high price tag. Now, my friends, since I don't know much of anything about economy and countries' economies, then I will have to rely on other people who do more, and I will bring you Alexandra Prokopenko from X, who is giving us a macro analysis of the Russian economy, and I read it through, and I think it's really economy for dummies. Since I'm a dummy in economy, I will just read it with you, and if you know more about it, please put it in the description, because most of my education about this is your comments, because you guys are experts on these separate fields. Behind Russia's GDP's 3.5% expansion in 2023 are uncontrolled growth of expenditures, high inflation, distortions of the labor market. Problems will only multiply in the future. Putin faces an impossible trilemma. He must fund the war against Ukraine, maintain the Russian populace living standards, and safeguard macroeconomic stability. Achieving all 3 goals is impossible. For now, high oil and gas revenues, competent financial management by the Russian authorities, and lax enforcement of the Western sanctions play to the Kremlin's advantage, but they mask growing imbalances in the economy. Military spending eclipsed social spending. Less than 5% of GDP for the first time in history. $18 billion state investment to 4 annexed regions of Ukraine. Interregional inequality. Manufacturing has been transformed, with civilian industries dwarfed by the military-industrial complex. And if an economy pushes huge amounts, percentages of GDP to military, this doesn't really bring back to the economy, because producing weapons, it's very good to the United States. You produce the weapon, you pay the wages to the guys who produce the weapon, and then you sell the weapon abroad, also you take all of the money back to the society, back to United States economy, because you make the weapon, then you sell it. It's all a circle of life. But in Russia, they produce the weapon and then they send it to Ukraine. Nobody's buying the weapon. They send it to Ukraine to explode an outhouse in a field somewhere. $1 million missile, for example, falls down in a field. It's $1 million taken away from the circulation of the economy, not sold like the United States model. So producing weapons for the war in Ukraine for Russia is, in the short terms, the wages paid to the workers who produce these weapons. Yes, they will put money in circulation, but in the long term, it's a death spiral. Defense enterprises operate at fever pitch now. Any surge in demand will likely force prices to rise due to the sector's inability to increase supply. This pushes up wages. For the time being, this allows the Kremlin to maintain a pretense of normalcy, but with high inflation. The interplay between military spending, labor shortages, and rising wages has created an illusion of prosperity that is unlikely to last. And the illusion of prosperity, it is very easy to make if you have 300 billion in your war chest, because any shortcomings of the country's economy you can just prop up by just coughing money at the problem. But when the money runs out, well, then the problems will start to show themselves. Right now, it's not going to run out for another year. Definitely not. So, if people look at the Russian economy saying, oh, wow, everybody's saying it will collapse, but it hasn't. It's even risen. Yes, if you cough money at anything, it will work. That's how it is. And Russians have been doing it. The money will run out. Wages and the state payments equals consumption. Putin's directive to secure availability of consumer goods equals imports, because they don't produce these consumer goods. Discouraging domestic production. Economies take time to get hurt and they take time to be built up. Now, Russian economy is in a downward spiral, doesn't show yet to the untrained eye, but the economists know, and it takes years. The Kremlin's way to fuel growth by subsidized loans to people and businesses undermine macroeconomic stability. The amount of such loans has exceeded 130 billion or 7% of GDP. The mortgage sector is the main liability, as 70% of new credit accounts for soft loan programs have also become unsustainably reliant on war-related payments, meaning that a huge amount of the population now who has come back from the war has taken up mortgages because they get war-related payments, which are payments from Putin's war chests. One-time payments that go out but doesn't generate anything back into the war chest. So if that runs out, the real estate sector will just implode. The car producing sector is already owned by the Chinese. They're not able to produce any more planes, as the Western planes, 500 of them stolen by Russia, are slowly starting to, let's say, falling out of the skies. If the war is to end, it will become difficult for many people to service their loans, especially in the face of rising prices. I will end it here, but this analysis for me is perfect for Economy for Dummies, macro analysis of the Russian economy. So if I got any points wrong here, educate me in the comments. And now, my friends, final analysis point before I go to Ukraine from Joni Askola, the NAFO fella from Finland. According to the report by the Kyiv Post, the United States has purchased 81 outdated Soviet-era combat aircraft from Kazakhstan at the price of less than 20,000 per unit. This is incredibly cheap. And it's so weird that the United States is buying these old jets from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is supposed to be fully under the Russian sphere of influence, but they're trying to change that. Kazakhstan has been in the process of systematically replacing its aging fleet of Soviet-manufactured combat aircraft with modern alternatives. As part of its ongoing modernization efforts, Kazakhstan announced in October the auctioning of 117 Soviet-era fighters and bomber aircraft, including MiG-21 interceptors, MiG-27s, MiG-29s, Su-24s, and they're made in the 1970s. So they're one of the newest. And some of the planes are actually from the 1950s that the United States bought. So I don't know what they're going to do with them. They cannot send them to Ukraine because Ukraine is not fielding planes from the 1950s. But you know what they can do with it, I think, and Joni also mentioned it, that if they can get them up and running, let's say it's the 1950 MiG, they can get it up and running, they can put it in the air and they can fly it remotely, not putting a pilot into it. They can just use it to soak up the Russian anti-aircraft ammunition. Because since this jet is, let's face it, it's useless against Russian jets and it's useless against ground targets. So you can just use it to clear up the way for other missiles and drones. Since 20,000 per plane is so cheap, it's almost at the price of Russian S-300 missiles. So if they use many of these to shoot the plane down, already worth it in the economy-wise. Because every war is a war of logistics and a war of economy and a war of numbers and money. My friends, what you see on the screen right here is REHI Podcast. It is back. I'm right now in my new podcast studio, fully built out for you, and you will get a podcast every Monday. Come rain or high water, hell or high water, that's what they say. So the link is in the description below. Go and watch it. I will include guests like the leader of the 69th Sniffing Brigade, Ragnar Sais. This one here is Kristo Vaga, a member of Estonian Parliament. We will have ministers, we will have chief of staffs, we will have everyone who is higher up and connected to Ukrainian war or Northern European security or economy. It will be interesting if you like my channel. Kristo Vaga, for example, from this podcast is right now as we speak bicycling to Kyiv. 7 days, 2,000 kilometers on a bike, a member of parliament. Could you say that to your country's members of parliament? Can they do that? And I will meet him in Kyiv in 2 days since I'll leave tomorrow with a car though, not with a bike. This is a crazy dude and you can go and listen to his story on the podcast. Links in the description below. And now, my friends, for the last time before I leave for Ukraine, I'll butcher some buy me a coffee names. I didn't do it yesterday since I wanted to be honest with you about my mental health, but today I'll give you the pleasure of listening to these names pronounced horribly. Davide, Daniel Rosberg, Rupa Drev, Lauri Lanke M. Viese, South African supporter, Robert Eskeld Ernstson, Peter, David, and Katkok. We have Felix the Cat buying a Baba Yaga drone, and then we have Katkok as a Buy Me a Coffee member. I mean, we have a lot of felines supporting this channel, a lot of cats. I gotta say to you, meow meow, my friends. Until my next video, which will be on the 6th of May, so definitely be back, subscribe, Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.